Hi, folks. Let's talk about why you don't actually need to use page object pattern in JS, why it's not mandatory, it's not needed with JavaScript. So, first of all, what is the issue with it in JS? If we take a look at page object pattern implementation in JS, in this case it will be with Playwright, but doesn't really matter, Playwright, Cypress, or whatever. So the idea of page object pattern is to store element locators and actions with those elements separated from the test scenarios themselves for easier maintainability, introducing code duplication. So, but in order to do that in object-oriented programming languages like Java, C# and others, you need to actually declare classes, describe everything in those classes, and then instantiate objects from those classes. That's why this pattern called page object. But when people switch to JS, they bring along, from Java for example, they bring along this pattern to JS as well, forgetting that JS is not object-oriented programming language, it's prototype-based, basically it's more functional than object-oriented. Anyway, the issue here that what I see as an issue and what can be improved, I will show you how, is that every time you need to create, you need to describe page classes and then create objects from them. In our case, for example, here for Best Buy, you need to store it in a separate file, declare a constructor, declare fields inside it, and then goes your actions. Sometimes you will need to declare, you would want to declare them separately as read-only properties and so on. So basically the overkill here is to create these classes and maintain them. But I can show you how you can achieve the same level of maintenance without using classes in JS and creating objects from them. So basically, you will, if you will need to update some locator, you will go and update it only in one place in your code. The same goes for methods or functions or actions with those locators. If you need to change some action, you will go and update it only in one place in your code. Exactly the same ideology as behind page object pattern. But you will not have to create classes, declare constructors, and deal with all this stuff. So let's take a look at this example. Now let's go back. Yeah, what I also don't really like that sometimes it's not so, let's say, human readable and easy to understand when you need to create objects inside your tests, then do something with those objects. For people not familiar with programming, it's hard to follow them. Not everyone can understand this ideology, and it's not easy for them to read and follow the test scenario in page object notation, let's call it. But you can also write tests this way, for example, without using page object. For example, sign in with random role, assert text equals is present sign out, then do sign out, then assert text equals is present. You see, you don't need to create any object, you don't need to create classes, it's easy to read, easy to follow. The same, for example, with order creation. You can different size of functions or actions, I call them actions. I will explain why. You can have different size of action inside each function, meaning it can be sign in, it can be just a click a set of actions like in sign in, it can be just open an URL, it can be just click on one button inside it. You see sign in with a random role, find available product, open this product, click on add to cart button, view cart, checkout, add address if missing, click on continue, use random credit card, click on submit order button, get submitted order ID, assert order is present in order history. So how exactly you can achieve this? Let's see. So I created the folder structure I'm using. I created folder actions, and basically I put, based on functionality areas, created separate files where I store implementations of those functions. You see account actions responsible for account creation, sign in, sign out, everything related to accounts. The same for addresses, common actions like open URL or something, close modal, do some basic stuff with footer or header on the page, home page actions, order actions, payment actions, product actions, whatever you call it, you name it. Separately sign in actions. For example, inside open URL, I have basically just one playwright command, page go to. This line above, this is just for login purposes. This line above I'll explain what is it for. So here I have non-page object example for playwright. So for playwright, in order to call playwright command, for example, you need to pass along page object that comes from playwright, and then do all the actions on this page, whatever parameter, object, whatever you call it. But in order not to pass it to each and every function, and even here when you are creating page objects, you are passing it into constructor. You say this page equals page with page object, and then you just using this page to call actions on it. So if you are not using constructors and classes, you will have to pass it into each function, but there is a way to hide it. For this, you can just again with JavaScript you can store it in any variable inside your process, inside Node.js running environment. So basically in each before each test, and this you will have to have in each spec file. I'm just saying, I named it playwright page. You can call it whatever you want. It should be the same name as you will be reading it from here whenever you will need it. But really what I'm doing, I'm just saving page context and request, if you need context and request as well, into separate variables. This method just setting cookies, so I will not see pop-up window feedback in my specific project. And then you don't need this, you don't need to pass this variable at all, even here on the test level, because you will take it inside your functions from the process variables. And where do you store your locators then? For example, this function, click on add to cart button, just a playwright wrapper for better report readability, but the actual lines are here, basically these two. Take the page from process, then call page.locator playwright method, pass in the locator, first click, and you store all your locators in the same file, or directions in this case. On the top you see I'm just declaring all the XPaths, CSS, or whatever you want to use, and then just you accessing these locators directly in this file and create these functions. If you will need to share the same locator between few actions classes, you basically just add export keyword, and with this it will be available for import in other action files. And then you just import those functions on the top. For example, here after sign in, I want to assert some check. I will say await assert text equals is present. No, let's do assert text contains. You see here it's showing that it's not imported yet, but it can see it in this file. So basically when I click enter, it adds import automatically, Visual Studio Code. You don't need to add it manually. And then I'm passing some text here. And basically this is also demonstration of IntelliSense code completion. I wanted to say this one. Someone can say that when you are using page object pattern in, for example, Java, you will have this auto code completion after you will put object name and dot, so it will list you all the methods available in this page object. But actually it's the same level of comfort here. You just start typing, click on something, it will show you all the actions, all the functions available in all of your classes, whatever it can find in the code. So it's not a concern here, exactly the same behavior, exactly the same benefits. So how to hide page parameter, I show this one. So using this, and then by calling, of course if you will need this page parameter in each function, you will need to repeat this line in each function, but I don't see it as an issue or concern. That's how this mechanism works. Then for example, what if in page object you can use, and object-oriented languages, you can use inheritance in order not to duplicate your code. Here with functions you don't need inheritance, you can just store some common functions separately in separate utils folder. For example, in my case I have web element utils, which is using exactly the same mechanism, taking page from process and then do with it whatever you want. For example, is text equals present, that will use playwright method, $$ or something, and do whatever you want. And you can put these small reusable helper methods like is element displayed, is text equals present, wait for URL to change or something, whatever you want. You just store everything in functions without using classes, objects, creating constructors, and so on. And by the way, this process thing storing this page parameter inside process, it works fine even when I run my tests in parallel on Selenium Grid. So currently on my current projects, I'm running playwright test on Selenium Grid, so it works in a multi-thread environment on CI/CD perfectly fine, no issues with it. So at least I haven't experienced any issues or concerns. So I tested it, works perfectly fine. Now, so web element utils and other base methods. Besides web element utils for usability, you can create for code reusability. You can store your file, functions to work with files separately. Page, you see I have something for ADAC compliance, file utils, page utils, reading from Excel sheet, string utils, and I generate some random string from date and stuff. So everything is just declared in functions. IntelliSense code completion. Yeah. So I guess basically that's it. Yeah, just less effort to write those using this approach. It was perfectly fine for me, for my purposes. I just don't need to create classes, translate objects. In my opinion, it's increase readability of tests. It's easy to follow, even easy to understand for even non-technical person what's going on inside this test. And again, I'm just avoiding creating a bunch of files, constructors and declarations, instantiations and everything. So as a conclusion, once again, the idea of page object pattern is to store locators and possible actions with them separately from test scenarios themselves. And this is exactly what I showed, what I'm doing here. It just doesn't look the same way visually as in Java, for example. But the maintainability is exactly the same. I store each locator only in one place. If it changes, I will go and update only in one place. The same goes for methods, functions, actions, whatever you call them. They need to be updated only in one place. So basically, I follow the same ideology behind the page object pattern. We just don't need to create actual classes, objects. And this whole idea came to my mind in implementation, because JS is not an object-oriented programming language, so I see it as an advantage and decided to find some better way to achieve the same result as page object pattern, but to make your life easier and tests easier to read. That's it for this video. I hope it helps to anyone looking for alternative approaches or just having issues with maintaining page object pattern in JS specifically. See you in the next video.